Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another videos of the paid request. This time for Sean. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both things are down below in the info box. And this is for the 1971 film The Anderson Tapes. Now, I had heard of this film. I had never seen it before. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, PayPal is usually the best bet, but the links are in the info box either there or there. And this came out a few years before The Conversation with Gene Hackman, so it's one of the early films about surveillance. But the surveillance is kind of still in the background, not really the focus of the film, which I thought was a bit weird. Now, it's directed by Sidney Lumet, who is a pretty good director. He did the original 12 Angry Men, did Serpico. The film stars Sean Connery. Enjoy him as an actor. Outland being my favorite of his. Diane Cannon, who's in films like Out to Sea with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. She's in this. Very young Christopher Walken. I think it was like the first film he got to be in, or at least substantial role. So a very young Christopher Walken. You also have Martin Balsam, who I remember from films like The Delta Force. I believe Alan Keane is in the film. Who was in quite a few stuff. I think he was in Stephen King's Cat's Eye, from what I remember. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that. Pretty much the gist of the film is Sean Connery. He was in prison for 10 years. He's gotten out of jail, along with Christopher Walken, who's named the Kid. And then this older guy that you tell is a bit institutionalized. All he knows is prison because he's been there since like 1931. So while they're out of jail, Sean Connery meets up with this woman played by Diane Cannon. Very nice, fancy place. Looks over the whole building and says, you know what? Let's rob the whole building. So then, kind of like Ocean's 11 or other heist films, caper films, gets the team together. You have Martin Balsam, who plays... he's supposed to be gay, and I'm sure there are people will get mad at the stereotypes and the dialogue and the word that rhymes with bag or saget gets thrown around a bit. He's there. Sean Connery gets him to look over the building and try to beat all the tenants to see who's there and how many people are there, and get sort of a head count of who's in the building. Christopher Walken is supposed to take care of the alarms and stuff. They get two guys to be the driver and stuff. Anyway, he gets the team together, and unbeknownst to all of them, there's all this surveillance going on. Diane Cannon's being recorded by this private investigator whose job is to tail Diane Cannon. The mob boss who's funding the whole thing, he's being investigated by another group, and there's tapes on him. The two guys they hired to be the drivers and stuff, they're being tailed and surveyed by another group. So it's all these groups surveilling what's going on and taping what they're saying. But because they don't all talk to each other, then they don't really get the gist of this robbery and what's about to happen. But it really comes off as, for me, a very underwhelming version of Ocean's 11. And I know people like the film. They did bad at me for not liking it, but I thought this film wasn't that interesting. I thought it was pretty boring, and I didn't like it. I love Sean Connery, did not like this film. Because, number one, they do this annoying as hell thing where every 5 minutes, if Sean Connery sees a camera, or we see a tape recorder, it does a beep boop boop bop bop doop boop 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 boop. every single time there's this sound effects of machines, boom, boom, dee, doo, like a 1950s sci-fi film. I'm like, does it have to be all the time throughout the entire damn film? It takes away from any about the seriousness, or if there's supposed to be tension or dramatic gumption. I'm like, I see the camera. I don't need to hear. In case you're too stupid to know it's equipment, machines. I make the sound effects of the machines, of the equipment. I already know. You don't. No, you don't have to do it every damn time. That is annoying as piss in the wind. So that's number one. Number two, the whole surveillance thing, for the most part, was pointless. Where, if the gist of the movie was a guy who's been in jail for 10 years, he comes out, but he's a man out of time. He's a man who still thinks that things could be done the old way. Which they kind of hint on that, but I think they could have really driven that home much stronger, much more potent. Is that because he's been in prison for 10 years, he doesn't realize how far technology has advanced, how technology has passed his old ways by. And so if it's like all these people are surveilling him and all these people know what's going on. So when they do the robbery, all these people from all the woodwork, like what the hell? They try to escape here, but these people know they're here, so they're up top. These people know, so they're at the bottom. These people know, so that like they're all around them at the same time or similar times because of all this surveillance that he didn't know about, because he didn't know much of surveillance, being in jail for 10 years. And just to show just how the old ways don't work anymore. Then maybe that could have been interesting subject, premise, motif, point to it all. But really the surveillance, none of it mattered at the end. The reason, just the last like 40 minutes is the heist, where another thing they're supposed to do is they're supposed to take this mob guy with them, but the head mob guy says, during the robbery, you need to kill him. What? Yeah, we want to get rid of this guy. This seems like a good way to do it. So we'll fund the stuff, but you take this guy with you, and during the robbery, let's say there's a little mistake that happens. You kill the guy. So it's okay, because the guy's a piece of trash anyway, who's racist as well. So ultimately, Sean Connery does kill the guy. But before that, they're in these masks, and they're going in these rooms and taking stuff. One of them is Margaret Hamilton. Yeah, Margaret Hamilton. The Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz. I knew she seemed familiar. And a bit of her banter with the other old lady is kind of funny. Just the other older lady's like excited about a robbery. She's like energized by it. But it's very fleeting and they don't hone in on it too much. And then they do the stupid thing where they flash forward. So they'll be part of the robbery that it flash forwards to the aftermath where people are being interviewed after things are said and done. They'll go back to the robbery. They'll flash forward to another person in the hospital, talk to the cops of what happened. Why would he do that? Because now you know that that person survived, and that person survived, and that person survived. And maybe the cadence, things didn't add as horrible or as what you... It's like you're spoiling yourself. You're doing these flash forwards to show who lived, and so you're spoiling yourself. And the flash forwards didn't add anything. They didn't add anything of merit. They didn't add anything that was really felt it was justifiable to do these flash forwards. It just felt like you're doing your own spoils, your own spoilers. You're spoiling yourself. I don't know why. And spoilers, speaking of which, like I said, the surveillance is not even what does them in. One of the people in the building is a paraplegic kid who has like a radio and talks to other people who know who have radios. Please bring the cops. And because enough of them contact the authorities, they said either this is a prank or it's real. But enough people are called in, so the cops come. And so it goes from the criminals, well, he's a bit too quiet outside, and what's going on here? And the cops, which I did like that the head cop, one of the head cops was Derek Morris. Chocolate Chip Charlie from The Stuff, which I got here. It's The Stuff, you know. So it was Chocolate Chip Charlie, alright. Who was on Saturday Night Live for a bit. He was done other stuff. It was great to see him in a, you know, decent role. Very substantial in the third act of the film. The last 40 minutes. I liked seeing him. And pretty much everything goes wrong. Sean Connery shoots the guy he's supposed to. They run for the elevator. Sean Connery gets hit. The other guys escape from the elevator to get to the truck. One driver of this Mayflower moving truck tries to drive through the tops, but he wrecks himself and dies. Then Christopher Walken drives in a van hidden in there. He crashes his vehicle, his van. He dies. What else? Sean Connery is hurt. He's trying to hide in the fireplace, but he's bleeding out. And the one time the surveillance really comes into play is Derek Morris finds some surveillance stuff, hears some moaning, and that's how they find where Sean Connery's at. Sean Connery says some words, something to the effect of pretty much, you can't always get what you want. This says someone, I forget the exact words, but the meaning is that you can't always get what you want. Just because you want it doesn't mean you'll get it. And pretty much gets arrested. He's in critical condition. They carry him out. All the tapes will be erased because tape at that point is illegal. So they erase all the tapes. All the tapes. I don't know why I sound really southern there. All the tapes. And the movie's over. Because apparently at one point Sean Connery's character was going to escape, but the studio didn't like that because bad guys must be punished. You can't have someone who's a criminal escape. Shows how things have changed. So yeah, the film I just thought was very boring. It was a heist movie, but you know, I like Sean Connery. It was cool to see a very young Christopher Walken. One of his early lines is, "America, so beautiful, man. I want to eat it." I wish he had even more to do, but again, it's early role for him. Diane Tam pretty much disappears because pretty much he finds out how much of a hoe she is, among other stuff, and leaves. Like I said, the whole surveillance thing, you think that'd be more prominent into what got them caught. But no, it's just a paraplegic kid on a radio. Which if that's the case, you didn't need any surveillance stuff at the end, except, I guess, the one bit where they find Sean Connery. The rest of it is just there for, I don't know, set dressing, just for a backdrop, to show how much we're being watched. We'll make them more a part of the plot, part of the heist, part of the, either Sean Connery thinks he's doing it, but then on the fly just realizes how over his head he is, so he's got to adapt to try to work his way out of this. You know, a Timex in a digital age. You know, find out how the hell to get out of the situation, how to outwit the situation, or he's not able to outwit it because the technology wins. Well, she just technically it does, but it's not from the surveillance stuff. It's from the kids, radio thing. So it's just that stuff. I thought it was going to play a lot more abundant to the proceedings, but it really wasn't. And again, it's most part typical robbery. Get the group together, set things up. I really didn't find it that exciting. The ending, yeah, it is what it is. Doesn't end well for them. Like I said, cool to see Derek Morris in there. The flash forward editing, I thought, again, kind of spoiled itself. Did what the purpose, the point of that flash forward editing was. All the tape stuff, like I said, for the most part, was pointless. I don't know. I just, it's not the worst film ever, but it's not a Sean Connery film I would ever revisit. Compared to most of really all the James Bond films he did. Because I like Dr. No. Goldfinger, I think, is his best that Sean Connery did Bond-wise. You Only Live Twice, I enjoyed. Diamonds Are Forever, I have some fun with. I wasn't big on From Russia with Love and Never Say Never Again, but I would rather watch those than this film again. So, yeah, I wasn't really much of a fan of this movie. Sorry about that, Sean. Didn't do much for me. But that's just me. Take that for you, old. Either way, thanks for watching. Take care. And we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.